The HOA thought they could scare me with paperwork and empty threats, but what they didn't know was that I wasn't just a homeowner. I was the chief of police in our county. And when they crossed the line, they were about to learn that law doesn't bend to petty power trips. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It all began when Nancy, our HOA president, started her authority show. She paraded around the neighborhood with a clipboard, waving bogus ordinance letters like she ran a government agency. She claimed she had the power to fine me for parking violations on my own driveway, even though my truck was registered, inspected, and legally parked under State Vehicle Code 22507.2, which clearly states HOAs cannot override municipal parking laws. When I refused to pay, Nancy escalated. She knocked on my door with two men in polo shirts, calling themselves HOA compliance officers. They flashed fake badges that looked like they were printed at Office Depot and warned me, "Sir, if you don't cooperate, we'll have to arrest you for non-compliance with HOA code." That was my first red flag. Arrest? HOAs don't have arrest powers, only sworn law enforcement officers do under State Penal Code 830.1. I let them finish their speech while my body camera quietly recorded every word. I played along, acting confused, asking them to repeat their claims. Every lie they added only stacked more evidence against them. But inside, I was already planning my move. Because if Nancy wanted to weaponize fake authority, I was ready to pull out the real kind. And then things escalated fast. The very next day, a marked security vehicle rolled into my driveway with flashing amber lights. Out stepped the same two fake officers, this time holding zip ties like they were about to haul me off. They didn't know yet who they were dealing with. The two so-called officers strutted up my driveway like they owned the place, holding plastic zip ties as if they had the legal authority to cuff me. One barked, "Sir, under HOA code enforcement, you're under arrest. Step aside or we'll have to use force." I almost laughed. HOA code enforcement? There's no such thing. Under Title 18 U.S. Code 912, impersonating an officer is a federal crime. They weren't just bluffing. They were committing a felony right there on my property. I raised my hands casually, pretending to comply. All right, I said, stepping down my porch stairs. But as soon as they reached for me, my training kicked in. I snatched the first guy's wrist, twisted, and dropped him to the ground before he even realized what happened. His knee bent the wrong way with a sickening pop. He screamed, clutching it as he tried to crawl back toward their fake patrol car. The second lunged forward, zip ties ready. I shifted my weight, hooked his ankle, and sent him sprawling face first onto the pavement. His knee slammed, dislocating on impact. He howled, trying to drag himself upright, but the moment he moved, the joint gave way. Both men were crawling now, moaning in pain, begging me not to hit them again. I didn't need to. They were already done. I pulled out my real badge, the one issued by the county, not laminated at a print shop. I crouched next to them and said calmly, "You boys just impersonated peace officers, trespassed, and attempted unlawful detention. That means you're both looking at prison time." Their faces drained. The tough guy act evaporated instantly. While they writhed on the ground, I called dispatch. Within minutes, two of my real officers rolled up, guns drawn, sirens wailing. They secured the imposters, read them their rights, and loaded them into the back of a squad car. Neighbors peeked through blinds, whispering, realizing this wasn't some HOA drama anymore. This was a criminal takedown. But the best part was still to come, because those two weren't acting alone. Someone with power in the HOA had sent them, and I already knew exactly who. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. At the station, the fake officers cracked almost immediately. Under questioning, one of them admitted they weren't just freelancing. Someone in the HOA had promised them a hefty payout to teach me a lesson. That someone was none other than Nancy Grant, the HOA president. I wasn't surprised. Nancy had been gunning for me ever since I fined her son last year for reckless driving. She thought she could use intimidation to push me out of the neighborhood, maybe even ruin my career. Instead, she just tied her name to a federal case. The charges stacked up quick: impersonating a police officer, 18 U.S. Code 912, conspiracy, attempted unlawful detention, and trespassing. Each carried real prison time. And because she orchestrated it, Nancy wasn't going to hide behind just HOA rules anymore. She was looking at felony-level accountability. When my officers brought her in, Nancy tried her usual smug routine. "This is a misunderstanding. I was trying to protect the community." I leaned across the table and slid the file toward her. Inside, statements from the imposters, the fake badges, the surveillance footage from my own security cams. Her face fell. "This isn't a misunderstanding, Nancy," I told her. "It's a criminal conspiracy, and you're done." Her lawyer tried to argue, but the evidence was bulletproof. Within hours, Nancy was booked. The HOA board called an emergency meeting the next day. Neighbors who once trembled under her rules now stood up and demanded her immediate removal. The vote was unanimous. Nancy was stripped of her position, fined heavily for legal costs, and banned from holding any HOA office ever again. As for the two imposters, they'll be limping into prison after their knees heal, probably wondering why they ever agreed to mess with me in the first place. Standing on my porch later that evening, I sipped my coffee while squad cars still idled down the street. Justice felt heavy, but right. The neighborhood was finally free from Nancy's iron grip. And me? I was more than just their neighbor. I was their chief of police. And that's how the HOA learned the hard way. When you send fake officers after me, you don't just lose your power, you lose everything.